Hey everybody, and Tony here with my review of Wagner's Der Fliegende Holländer with once again conductor Ivan Repusic, which I saw at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. This marks the fourth time I saw Christian Spuk's production of Wagner's Der Fliegende Holländer at the Deutsche Oper Berlin because I wanted to see and hear Egils Silins perform the title role of the Dutchman. But before I get to Mr. Silins and his performance as the Dutchman, a few words about Yang Li as Daland. I enjoyed his performance as Daland. I enjoyed the way he was able to make fine use of his basso profondo / basso cantante voice to make this skipper come to life with all of his warm gruffness and his unique sense of likability, and of course, his trademark virility. Yes, the only thing that could be held against him is that wobble and that throatiness that otherwise would have marred his performance greatly, but Yang Li's dark basso cantante / basso profondo voice was able to compensate whatever vocal flaws he had. That darkness, warmth, and that strength and endurance that he had, even with all of his flaws, managed to make him a thoroughly strong performer from beginning to end. And he definitely won me over for the evening. Yes, while I can never deny much stronger and more focused voices coming from the likes of Gottlob Frick, Kurt Böhme, and Josef Greindl, I still have to give Yang Li a whole lot of credit for what he was able to accomplish as Daland. And here's also hoping that I get to see him in a lot more basso profondo roles in the future. So I have to give him a lot of kudos for making Daland come to life with his signature virile gruffness. And of course, using that dark basso profondo / basso cantante voice to make this character come to life. Egils Silins was the main highlight of this performance of the Fliegende Holländer. His career has been spanning for nearly 35 to 40 years, especially since he sang roles from the basso cantante repertoire all the way up to the bass baritone repertoire and even Heldenbariton roles, i.e. roles such as Enrico from Anna Bolena all the way up to Telramund from Lohengrin. And as I heard him sing tonight, his dark, round, rich, and cavernous voice was absolutely appropriate for the Dutchman. Yes, there were occasions where he sounded strident in the higher notes, and there were occasions where he did give in to throaty singing, and he did give in to just trying to let his voice out in the more emotionally charged up moments. But the plushness and the depth that he had in store as the Dutchman was his absolutely amazing asset that he managed to preserve throughout the evening and do so with virility and interest. Sure, I still have my personal favorite Dutchmen at my disposal, such as Paul Schöffler, Friedrich Schor, Ferdinand Franz, Hans Hotter, Josef Greindl, who also sang the Dutchman much later in his career, Herman Ude, and George London, especially considering that these 7 exponents are not only my personal favorites, but they're my personal favorites for a reason, thanks to their naturally cavernous, focused, and chestier voices, complete with all that chest at the bottom and even using that chest at the top to make the Dutchman a strong character as well as a character I feel sorry for and a character that I feel the need to just understand where he's coming from. Egils Silins managed to accomplish that vocally too, as well as theatrically, and he was a tall and handsome figure on stage who managed to make me totally mesmerized. Even with some of his vocal flaws, they can be forgiven because his vocal assets, consisting of his dark timbre as well as the mysterious mysteriousness that he was able to provide with the Dutchman managed to make him a thoroughly strong performer from beginning to end. And his experience in a huge array of roles, from bass roles all the way up to Heldenbariton roles, proved that he was no stranger to the Dutchman, which was a role that he's been singing for several years and continues to find a lot of facets and nuances and attributes that make him all the more fascinating to play, let alone sing. So I have to give my hat off to Egils Silins for not only being a trooper, considering that he was able to brave this role, vocal flaws and all, but also use his vocal assets to the best of his abilities to make such a memorable and even remarkable performance. Robert Watson struck again for the third time as Eric. And while he continues to do a laudable job thanks to using that more baritonal timbre of his to make Eric an agitated, troubled, and absolutely fearful hunter, especially considering that he's about to lose his mind in terms of the legend of the Dutchman, his singing sounded a lot more effortful than when I heard him about 10 days ago. His voice still had that virile and masculine presence, and it still had that strength to sing over an orchestra. However, there were times where he felt like his wings were clipped. There were times where he felt like he had to keep pushing himself to bring out those big notes and use a lot more effort to sing a lot more hugely. But despite the more effortful singing that Robert Watson provided in his performance as Eric, he was still a laudable performer. He was still able to give the goods theatrically, and of course, he was still able to keep his vocal assets intact, all thanks to his baritonal spinto tenor voice that continues to grow stronger and even deeper in the lower parts. And here's also hoping that he continues to grow in strength and virility in more engagements that he finds himself in. Matthew Newland also grew stronger as a performer, especially considering that he struck again as the steersman. This time he was more vocally present. He was way more charismatic in this role. He was able to give a lot more goods as the steersman, and he was able to continue to have a ball in making the steersman come to life, both vocally and dramatically, and his strong vocal assets found in his wonderful full lyric tenor voice managed to be intact, and he was able to just continue to win me over as the steersman, let alone as a fine and dashing singing actor. Lauren Decker also struck again as Mari, and this time she sounded a lot more focused and she sounded way fuller than she did 10 days ago, and her voice still has a lot of potential to keep on growing in the right direction and even grow in way more depth, darkness, and cavernousness as a contralto. More than anything, her strong stage presence also continued to be an even stronger asset to her performance. So brava to Lauren Decker as Mari. I do hope that she continues to grow from strength to strength. Vida Miknevichute was a wonderful Senta, and it's all thanks to her signature lyric soprano voice that can also have the metallic quality of a spinto soprano, especially where her reliable top notes were at the ready, and she was able to just launch at her signature top notes with ease and with clarion power. Yes, there were occasions where she sounded effortful in some areas, and she sounded tired and sounded quite labored, especially when she tried to sing a high B, but she tried to sing it pianissimo, but it kind of sounded as if though that something was a little bit wobbly. Nevertheless, in the later part of the opera, she recovered so well. And she went all guns blazing in the finale, just throwing high notes everywhere she goes and just letting her voice out with pure abandon, pure beauty, and pure excitement. That was just how much of a trooper Vita Miknevičiūtė managed to be as Zenta. One can argue that she could have used a lot more vocal fullness and vocal richness and additional chesty depth a la Birgit Nilsson and Leonie Rizanek. And since she had those top notes, it would have also made a lot more sense for her to sing Zenta's ballad Yo ho ho hoe traft ihr das Schiff in Meere an in its original higher key of A minor. That would have been way more exciting for Miss Miknevičiūtė to accomplish because she had those top notes. She can launch at those top notes, especially when she has a go at Zenta's ballad in the original higher key of A minor. And I do hope that she performs Zenta's ballad in its original key one day. She has all the potential in the world to accomplish it, and she has her great top notes and piercing top notes at that to make sure that she has a go at singing Zenta's ballad in its original key. Regardless of whatever issues there were with Vida Miknevičiūtė as Zenta, whether it be showing tiredness or showing some hoarseness or showing moments where she feels like the weight of Zenta was a bit too heavy for her, she nevertheless bounced back up and proved herself to be a strong performer and a thoroughly consistent performer at that, and just went all out with pure abandon. So what more can I expect from someone as exciting, awesome, and really interesting as Vida Miknevičiūtė? I was initially quite skeptical with how she was gonna continue with these spinto/dramatic soprano roles, and while the natural innate quality of her voice is very lyrical indeed and has a silvery timbre to it, I still believe that she does have a decent future in more spinto soprano roles, not necessarily as Sieglinde, which, mind you, is still quite deep and low for her, let alone chesty for her, but I'm talking about roles like Hemwege or Elsa, Elisabeth from Tannhäuser, Eva from Meistersinger from Nuremberg, and yes, even Chrysothemis, and here's also hoping that she also does the Marschallin and Arabella. Those are roles that I would argue are way more suitable for Miss Miknevičiūtė to sing rather than something like Salome or Sieglinde. The skepticism that I initially had for Vida Miknevičiūtė, especially as Zenta, was melted all thanks to her proving herself to be a consistent musician and an equally consistent singing actress who went all out with her top notes and went all out with her good vocal coordination from beginning to end. So overall, the singing was still really good all around. Yes, there were occasions where both Yang Li and Egils Silins did demonstrate some throaty singing, but they still had sufficient cavernousness to make the roles of Daland and the Dutchman respectively come to life, and their vocal performances definitely buttressed them to be fine singing actors all the way through. And even though Robert Watson did show some effort and a bit of hoarseness in his singing, he was still a thoroughly involved singing actor through and through. Matthew Newland grew stronger, Lauren Decker grew stronger, and Vida Miknevičiūtė proved herself to be an equally consistent, beautiful, and phenomenal singing actress who, although still had her trademark silvery lyric soprano voice, she managed to back it up with technique and back it up with excitement. So I still have to give Liang Li, Egils Silins, and Vida Mignavichute a whole lot of A-pluses all around, especially with Vida Mignavichute being so consistent all around, and she actually was the best singer of the evening, so brava to her. The conducting done by Ivan Repusic was a lot more consistent. It was a lot more nuanced, and he showed a lot more attention to detail than when he did 10 days ago. There was no sludging around. There was no dragging. It was a lot more crisp and a lot more clean. He was able to keep the tension pumping, and of course, what more can you expect from the chorus and the orchestra of the Deutsche Oper Berlin? Everybody was reliable and everybody was a pro. So overall, with Liang Li and Egils Silins striking strong performances as Dalland and the Dutchman respectively, especially where Egils Silins' experience as the Dutchman is concerned, they both managed to win me over in their roles, and especially where Egils Silins' signature role of the Dutchman managed to make me thoroughly enthralled with his performance, even with his vocal flaws of throatiness and just trying to let his voice out with everything that he's got, even with that throatiness and even with that wobble. But regardless, he was still a trooper through and through, and he was still a dedicated singer. Special acknowledgement and special kudos really had to go to Vida Mignavichute, who, despite showing some tiredness, despite showing some signs where some of her top notes were kind of scratchy, she still managed to just throw caution to the wind and deliver a stirring performance as Zenta. And even though her voice still has that signature silvery lyric soprano voice intact, the fact that she was able to go all guns blazing in the final moments of the opera managed to make her performance as Zenta an exciting one. And I still have to give a fair amount of salutes to Robert Watson, Matthew Newland, and Lauren Decker for doing fine jobs as Erik, the steersman, and Mari respectively. And for those of you who caught this performance of Wagner's Die Fliegende Holländer at the Deutsche Oper Berlin, what'd you think of it? Did you feel that Liang Li and Egils Silins, especially Egils Silins, stole the show as Dalland and the Dutchman respectively? Did you enjoy Egils Silins as the Dutchman? Was there another singer who stole their thunder, whether it be Robert Watson or even Liang Li as Dalland, or Matthew Newland, or Lauren Decker, or even Vida Mignavichute? Or did you feel like the singing was not really to your liking? Please comment below and let me know. Well, that's it for my review of Wagner's Die Fliegende Holländer starring Egils Silins as the Dutchman. Tune in next time for my review of Wagner's Die Meistersinger von Nürnberg starring Johann Reuter as Hans Sachs at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. So until then, good night everybody.